have to say alrighty, Jonathan. You used to say that every time you did this.
Alrighty.
Alrighty. Except every time I go live on Facebook, it wants me to re-log in again. It's so annoying.
Hey, how big is Melbourne?
I don't know.
How many people?
4 million.
A million?
Four.
4 million? So it's kind of like a mini New York or something size?
Yeah, I
big?
think it's like, I think they compare it to Boston.
Boston?
Yeah, in terms of size. They call it our sister city. I don't know why. All right, Mark, do you want to start? Sorry, do you want to start, Mark, and I will just...
Yeah, can we mute everybody and so on? Hello, everybody. Welcome. I believe this is Lip Balm 105. And we're delighted today to have the Unlikely Stories show, which includes Meg Twitt, Mark Ducharme, Henry Seven Renault Jr., Kyler Rodney, and Jared Schickling. And we're delighted to have them with us today. But before we move to the feature, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my co-hosts. First off, Jonathan Penton, of course, who is going to be featuring all of you guys today, who founded Unlikely Stories in 1998 and has lent his editorial and management assistance to many literary and artistic ventures such as Mad Hat, the New Orleans Poetry Festival, Rigorous, and Big Bridge. In 2005, he founded Unlikely Books, which publishes 3 to 5 books of poetry a year. He's organized literary performances and performed himself across the United States. His poetry books are Last Chap from Virgin Press, Blood and Salsa and Painting Rust, Prosthetic Gods, and Standards of Sanity from Litfest Press in 2016, and the free chapbook Backstories, which you can download from Argotist eBooks. What you got for us today, JP?
Hello. Okay, so as the regulars have heard me say many times, I'm not terribly prolific. So what I read most weeks is something that we've recently published on the Unlikely Stories website. And I have a really exciting prose poem for us from there this week by Howie Good. This is called First World Problems. They're auctioning off the unwashed and still stained underwear Elvis wore on stage beneath his iconic white jumpsuit. The darkness at the root of things inevitably seeps to the surface. I try ignoring my pathetic yearning for something better, or at least different, but I can't, any more than I could a rooftop sniper firing randomly into a crowd I had joined. And it's not like I'm a guy committed to the dictionary definitions of words. What they call hope, I would call a complete absence of twilight. Again, that's First World Problems by Howie Good. I love that one. All right, next up, we're going to hear from Cassandra Atherton. Cassandra is an award-winning writer, scholar of prose poetry, and professor of writing and literature in Melbourne. Her most recent books of prose poetry are Pre-Raphaelite, Leftovers, and Fugitive Letters. She is currently writing a book of prose poetry on the atomic bomb with funding from the Australia Council. She co-wrote Prose Poetry, an Introduction, and the Anthology of Australian Prose Poetry. She is commissioning editor for Westerly Magazine. Cassandra, what have you got for us today?
I've got a super short one. I've been commissioned to write these 21 poems on salt or salty, which has been wearing me down. But I finally finished, but I have a very short one that's a bit cheeky. Excuse the pun when you hear the poem. It's called Sweat. I leave a ring of salt on his car seat, not a magic circle to protect passengers or ward off bad luck, just an outline where my buttocks connected with the black pleather on the hot drive home. That's it. So I'm going to introduce the amazing Mark Vincennes. Mark Vincennes is an Anglo-Swiss American poet, a fiction writer, translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist, and musician. He has published 20 books of poetry, including more recently Einstein Fledermaus, The Little Book of Earthly Delights, A Brief Conversation with Consciousness, There Might Be a Moon or a Dog, forthcoming, I guess, from Gazebo Books Australia, forthcoming for some time, but getting there, I think. 39 Wonders and Other Management Issues, forthcoming from Spite and Dival. The Magnificent The Pearl Diver of Iran Mani, forthcoming from White Pine Press. If that isn't enough, he has an album of music, ambience and verse, Left Hand Clapping, which is forthcoming from Tree Torn Records. Vincenz is also a prolific translator, and he has translated from, the regulars know this one, German, Romanian, and French. He's published 11 books of translations, most recently An Audible Blue, Selected Poems 1963 to 2016 by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist, Klaus Mertz, just out from White Pine Press. He is currently working on a brilliant star-spangled novel entitled The Age of Occasions. Vincenz is editor and publisher of Mad Hat Press and publisher of New American Writing. He has lived all over the world, from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born in Matilda Hospital on the Peak in Hong Kong, but he now lives on a farm in rural Western Massachusetts, overlooking Herman Melville's Greylock Mountain, Melville's inspiration for Moby Dick, where there are more, wait for a drum roll, 6-spotted orb weavers, black-footed yellow sack spiders, and cicada killers than people. That's like ominous. Cicada killers? That's dark, Mark.
Yeah, it's a kind of wasp, actually.
Wow. What about the sack one? I don't think I ever want to meet a yellow sack spider.
Yeah, it's just called a sack because it's got like a big thorax, which is full of yellow stuff.
Okay. Tempting to get where you are in Western Massachusetts for their sack spiders and their cicada killers. Thank you.
We've got a couple of leeches for you as well. In fact, the other day when I went up to the well that we have on our farm to look inside, there were 2 leeches stuck on the side of it at the top, and I was debating, are these blood-sucking leeches or not? So I was debating taking one off and putting it on my hand and see if it would start to suck my blood. But then I changed my mind and just closed the well, Anyway, this is called Over the Snowfield. Over the snowfield, burrowing into the mountain, moving through that layer of grass and green roots. A little cluster of fungi passes. They are somewhere elsewhere, perhaps behind the juniper bush. Would you offer your hand to a tiny red flock of cardinals? They'll be heavy in the storm, you say. All that crimson has nowhere to go but deep into the earth. And then you think of the meadow by the shore where the cherry trees grow, where the crows are acrobats in late autumn. Once I saw a lone hen cross the pasture, pecking and cooing as she went. Hell knows what that clucking hen thinks of flying, and all those seeds moving on to Patagonia, sharp little flecks of hot iron. And now I'm delighted to pass the mic over to my co-host, Jonathan Penton, to host the Unlikely Stories, Unlikely Books special for this beginning of winter season.
Okay, so I thought I'd just real quickly take 2 minutes and say some very boring things about Unlikely Stories. I founded it in 1998 at the age of 23. I didn't know what I was doing. I've figured it out since, I hope. But yeah, 1988, when the web was very different. We've been publishing more or less continuously since then. And around 2005, we started hand stapling chapbooks with paperboard covers. And in 2010, we started publishing proper paperbacks. As Mark said in his introduction, we now publish 3 to 5 books a year. Our most recent books are Here, Which Is Also a Place by Mark de Charme, and Handling Felt Simple Sabotage Field Manual. Handling Felt Simple Sabotage Field Manual by Jared Schickling. Early this year, we published White Van by Meg Tuitt, and in 2019, we published Swimming Home by Kayla Rodney. We've published Henry on the website several times, but haven't published a full-length manuscript from them. But we've been wanting to have him on Lidbalm for a while. He's a good friend of Unlikely, and he's in this show because we want him to be. So, all right, let's go ahead and hear from Kayla. Kayla Rodney, author of Swimming Home and instructional designer for Clayton State University in Atlanta, has been writing since her time at Lusher Charter High School in New Orleans, where she studied poetry as part of their Certificate of Artistry program. Since then, she has earned her PhD in English with a focus on education and race and been working in different roles in higher ed. She is currently working on a small collection based around her interest in alternative spirituality and hopes to have it complete soon. Let me ask to unmute. All right, take it away.
Hi, everybody. How y'all doing today? I guess you can't really respond. Everybody's muted, but it's nice to see you all here. I'm going to be reading. I'm going to try to bookend my stuff new and then go through the older things and then new again, since I don't think I've read anything new in a minute. This first one I have here, I don't have a title for it. I've learned I'm not really good at titling my poems. I'm going to have to start practicing that. So this one I wrote maybe a few months ago. And I'm just going to dive into it. I waited for you to become a new man. To rise out of the grave I buried you in, refreshed Lazarus. I wanted you to be Lazarus. I hoped the old version of you died when you nailed me to the cross for your sins. I cried a baptismal pool of tears for you to be reborn. Abarashandala, did it work? The elders spoke tongues as I dipped you. Did your sins wash away? Did it feel good feeding me your faults? I've gotten fat off of them. I swallowed them one by one, sour, salty, sweet, jagged like glass. They cut going down. I gargled my own blood trying to save you from you. I'm not even Jesus. My blood becomes wine during the hours of remembrance. When the bottom of each glass tells the story of 40 lashes taken for no other reason than a mustard seed of love. It only takes love the size of a mustard seed. You only gave love the size of a mustard seed. I hoped it would turn to a tree. Instead, it turned to the dream of a rood you laid on my shoulders, gilded in gold, to make my pain look beautiful. Damn, I make this pain look beautiful. So I'm going to start reading. Thank you. I have this on my phone, so I actually cannot see any of you. I see Jonathan in a little tiny square at the top of the phone. That is all I see. So I'm using him as my cues for when to move on to the next piece. So thank you for being reactive. I'm going to move on to reading from the book that Jonathan was talking about, Swimming Home. I have a few pieces from here that I really appreciate reading for you all. I think that they really are fun for me to read, and hopefully you enjoy them as well. This first one I'm going to read is called Making Groceries, which I think everybody enjoys when I read this one. So I always read it every time. Making groceries. 2-day-old French bread for pudding, chopped seasoning, bay leaves, lump crab meat, smoked sausage and hot sausage. Gumbo boils over tops of pots, splashes onto stoves with roux dark as Mississippi water. City streets reek of vodka, morality overtaken by absinthe, rum rivers rushing through the quarters. There's a Le Bon Temps Roulette gliding down the avenue, sending shining bees flying to the atmosphere, shooting stars that land in oak trees, purple, green, and gold gilded moss. The Creole queen whose blood is the history of the victor, mama is passé, daddy pickback brown. Jazz music clashing, bashing, banging, and clanging through your ears and into the crevices of your brain. Handkerchiefs flapping in the air like doves and as umbrellas bob through your cerebral cortex. The sky screams as waters break, washing the city clean. Black bodies bump like logs in the floodwater. Fish jump over fish, jump over fish, jump over Miss Johnson's little boy who slipped off his roof into 9 feet of, I heard this big boom, and then all his water started rushing in. Generational ownership of the ghettos. The tapping of crushed big shot cans on brick roads beneath a child's wildly moving feet. Old tree roots like serpents break up the concrete. Bullets fall down like ash on Pompeii. Crawfish scream in the boiling waters. The baby bump of the Mississippi. History connected by fishing lines. The boom, boom, boom of open palms on Congo drums in Congo Square. Dirty chain feet dance in the Africa of their psyches. The ever-smiling voodoo doll in the fire pits. A lemonade huckabuck or a hucklebuck dripping down a child's wrist in the calliope. Red beans and rice Mondays. Pickled meat stewing over the fire. Beignets covered in blow lead to sweet dreams of etouffee and psychedelic raindrops. The saxophonist waits on the riverbanks to meet his muse in the twilight. The pregnant king cake Swollen with cinnamon and regeneration. Whoever finds the baby buys the next one. Red light district dancing under gas lamps on bourbon. The moon pie yellow messiah of night moseys through a music-filled sky. Weeping for the crescent city. Pauline sweet summers filled with strawberry fumes. Alligator meat melts on the taste buds. An axe, a pound of pecans, a pound of shrimp, a cup of community coffee to wash it all down. This next one is called Metronome. There are praline crumbs in my tear ducts when I wake up in the morning. Magnolia petal fingernails graze molasses skin and get stuck. He tells me my thighs are sweet potatoes hanging from my hips, and that when we have sex, the taste is cinnamon and cane sugar. I stick my entire body to his skin. His hair smells like a storm is coming. As my fingers play in the ravine on his back, my body rattles like thunder beating a window pane. Somewhere outside, a horn is singing to the sun while double Dutch ropes metronome in the background. I'm gonna read two more from here. How much time do I have, Jonathan? I'm not trying to run over.
You're about halfway.
Yeah, don't
Okay.
stop. We love it. Don't
Yeah.
stop. Stop.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. This one is called placage. There's this thing where it might be a myth, but it also might just be one of those historical things that got buried and turned into a myth so that people didn't think it was real or didn't want people to think it was real. So it's this thing where people would bring their mixed race daughters to these kind of parties where men could purchase them in a way. It was a New Orleans tradition that kind of got turned into this myth is not really the word I'm looking for, more of a, when I think of the word, it'll probably come to me when I'm done with my portion of it, which will be unfortunate. But this poem is called Placage. 1/8 of your conscience tells you I'm beautiful. That's why lust turns in your eyes like bilge water. You rock me to the soul of my Creole on a dance floor trampled by feet in different kinds of shackles, haggle for a turn to turn a waltz with me. How much did you pay at a quadroon? Did you like participating in the cakewalk you used to admire from seats shaded by oak trees, somehow heavy with fruit and reaching up to juggle the sun? I still boom Bache in Congo Square, but we dared to make gumbo file yaya. My can't know I go. But then I wipe the dust from my feet and press my hair. Fair, taupe-colored girl, in order to be here with you. How many dead bodies bang around, dead Black bodies bang around in the back of your mind like wind chimes? Are they loud? Do they sing the songs of women screaming at their slithering roots? The issue with the whip is that you hit yourself on the backswing. I feel how your consequences keloid under your shirt. How just 5 soft fingers on a bending waist can cage me here. This last one from this book is Hurricane Isabel 2003, which is actually one of my favorite ones in the collection, even though it's rather short. It's one of my favorites. So Hurricane Isabel 2003. Moonlight slinks through the curtains, through the boarded up windows, the spaces between spread fingers and lace legs as an emergency radio, statics the darkness. The rhythm of bodies playing shadow puppets in the accidentally romantic candlelight matches perfectly with the silence of the eye. He gasped, the intake a wind rising to fuck the hurricane. Then a drizzle hits the windows and the storm whips the trees. I just have a couple more. And this one was published in Water magazine. I don't remember the year, but this is their volume 2. Yes, I think volume 2 of Water magazine. And it's called lingual defiance. I wrote it because I got a job rejection letter, so it made me mad. But this one is about language. Well, obviously, because it's in the title. So my ancestors mangled your language like you mangled their bodies. They tripped over words that tasted like the Atlantic Ocean on their tongues, words that suffocated them from the inside. They were drowning in your language, so they kept their own, an anchor to the land you stole them from, as long as you would allow. Then you beat them until they threw up their native lexicon, word vomit spilling to the dirt around their feet. They swallowed your language even though it killed them. Slowly, you told me I am not qualified to teach remedial English, that I do not have the right education with which to grapple with the conjugation of your verbs. But what you don't understand is that I come from 200 plus years of wrestling with English, so who would know better how to withstand the violence of your language? It's door, not dough. It's floor, not flow. Ain't a word. 140 tongue lashings tried to cut the Ebonics out my throat. Instead, my tongue became double jointed, bending between the Queen's English and the syntax of a people who say baby with the long A. You heard me? You said I am not qualified to teach remedial English, but I think you're just mad I found the crip walk in your words. Mad I've been able to Magnolia clap over your syllabic, and there you sit, still speaking on the 1 and the 3 when the real music is on the 2 and 4. You turned your ugly language into a song you can't sing. Shit, I'd be mad too. This last one is another poem that I'm hoping to put in a collection about my interest in alternative spirituality. If anyone does tarot and you know the moon card, hopefully this invokes that image for you. I call this poem Sky Mother. I peered to the left and the right and only saw darkness and the thickness I had to claw through to get through, building under my nails. So I looked up and howled at the moon, and she screamed a golden color upon my skin. Then I stuck out my tongue, tasted the air. My God, air tastes like an ancestor following, finally touching me in a dream, pulling my mouth open until the jawbone cracked. So I looked up and howled at the moon, coy, calculated, telling me to chase her. So I ran, cut the soles of my feet on rocks, savage enough to try and stop me. I ran until eventually I crawled to a lake, met myself under the golden light, and danced and danced and danced. Thank you.
Thank you. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. There's I don't know if you can see the chat on your iPhone, but there's lots and lots of quotes and praise in it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, next we're going to hear from Mark Ducharme. Mark is the author of more than 20 books and chapbooks, including 5 previous full lengths: The Unfinished, books 1 through 6, Answer, The Sensory Cabinet, Infinity Subsections, and Cosmopolitan Trimble. Other recent publications include Scorpion Letters from Ethel and his work of Poets Theater, We the Monstrous, Script for an Unrealizable Film, published by the Operating System. Soon to be put out by Disney Plus. No, that's not true. His poetry has appeared widely in such venues as BlazeVox, Blazing Stadium, Caliban Online, Colorado Review, Radio, First Intensity, Indefinite Space, New American Writing, Noon, Shiny Talisman, Word for Word, and Poetics for the More Than Human World, an anthology of poetry and commentary. A recipient of the Neo-Dada Endowment in Literature and the Gertrude Stein Award in Innovative American Poetry. He lives in Boulder. All right, Mark, let me unmute you here. There you go.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan. And it's great to be reading today with Kayla and Meg and Henry and Jared. So I'm going to obviously be reading from the new book here, which is also a place. And none of these poems have titles. As a matter of fact, they're really part of a larger work. So, well, here we go. To go on making faces at the screen, speaking as of night, while we derive anterior postures, a means of drawing breath from tides. Night is longer than our eyes and comes in useless jolts, the words of people passing from our sight, the comfort of the despised. To enter night, become dispersed in rain, or imitate those falling out of windows off the wings of planes. Unravel passage to upheaval, tread by vanishing light. Dark of sky, at afternoon, earth subject to vanishing. The shadow of elsewhere, exacted by the pull of now. Lie there and astonish me with noon in your teeth while the wind moans, a worn out tune to wither, then witness such leaves scatter. We don't mean anything. We never did. We tire or grow distracted. We aren't really here when we're here. It's perplexing. What would I have wanted to say to them if they had been here? I mean, really, not just present, but implicated in the surroundings. Being here really palpably in the marrow of living, is that something I have achieved? Or you, dear reader? The ancient dictionary pulses in a silence of dead tongues. If you want to weep, you will find reason to weep. If you want to regard the heat and heat in tremors flinging, death by syllabus or alibi, clouds or chords from the throats of hungry children, listen to the peace which becomes rumor every time the hungry touch you and your naked feet go dancing. Go in search of one clear promise, reading and rereading, feeding the evidence in vision of that flame to carry the heat again and again. This next poem is after Jack Collum and Emily Dickinson. Then reading is a kind of ecology, a bare mark of the need to cultivate this or that frail book, as if a tiny species in a corner in the shade, fragile analog to human hunger in this place where we aren't standing. And like Emily Dickinson's work, this poem includes some alternate word choices and even a couple of alternate last lines. So here they are: agile, fertile, rampant, profligate, surrendered to what the dead can only carry, carried like the dead to human need. This next poem has an epigraph. Here's the epigraph. Even if there's a gigantic flash flood, even if my codex is swept away, it is all my brain, and I'll have it, even if the world is gone. That's from Alice Notley. I enter language in order to change it and be changed. That's a lie. I haven't changed anything. Am I changed? All the dumb metals in all the dead tongues, way too much for my feet to engage. Poetry isn't necessarily true, but is the truth. Poetry isn't necessary. Poetry's necessary in its wild surprise, its trumpeting abandon. Do the dead need poetry? Do ghosts care more than their shadows in the awakening air? This planet's not a shadow. Earth's a fragile macrostructure, blue habitation in the densest air imaginable, a lucky yarn or prism of desire, or wealth which has been squandered by fool heirs, just like in Shakespeare. The glares of the bees encapsulate a history of speechlessness. One, it sometimes seems, has a language in order to masturbate, whereas reading is a deep blue cloud. Having become a language and a conflagration in the conflicting trees. The language I speak of, if I seek anything, isn't always blue. Unless it's startled by useless thunder, a need for wanton closure. Could I be truly wanton if I fell apart outside the heroes of interesting tongues? Today was violent, but not yet anything repressed like speech. We have been here before all the time, like our blue selves, always triggered, restlessly contained with everything, always new at stake. I have nothing new or beautiful to tell you. In this still constructed story of our futures, leave out all our deaths and how I side with you, brave amigo, true witness to our still ironic days and bearer of all false true promises, or else just damned good company in this new diminished century at which even brave poets are not heeded. And that poem is dedicated to Anselm Hollow, who was nearing the end of his life at the time it was written. I'm going to close with this poem. It's a little bit longer, and in fact, it's in a few sections. I'll just pause between the sections. The page refuses to be occupied. It is a spatial form of amazement. Thus far in the breach, a confinement which intensifies when speech is almost full. When the page is empty or agitating for its self-determination, its profligacy, the page is a terrain, a complex ecosystem of exchanges to keep pace with erasure, amid location's rupture, lie down in the space of page-like constraints, echoing the echo. To be lost now in the echo and in cities which enable it, dank spaces which ruin the infinite, corruption of speech always already underway. As if one dreamed along the ocean floor and all its possible reflections. The ancient horses are laughing at the smell of windows broken, dusk, a violent thunderstorm of color whose possibilities weep, of index cards or phone bills or intractable summer outings. Biting the interiors, sharp canopies, we enter bruised, transformative, on the brink, impervious to neon clues, which once we'd settled for. To be lost now in the echo and in cities which enable it, when even poetry is not enough. Thinking in remembered cities while being the president of a state I can't construct, but from which I'm preternaturally about to set sail. If I become a character in my own awakening, if I am to become part of a world I must set right or create, if I am about to fill anything with its own disregard, if I want what I want but can't become listless with perturbation, if I care, being almost caught at an investigative body which you scatter until noon rubs off. Thank you.
Mark, that was fantastic. Such lovely imagery. Yeah, really exciting for me because, you know, I wasn't able to make it up to Boulder for the launch, and Mark wasn't able to make it down to New Orleans to have launch here. So this is the first time I'm hearing a lot of this live. And yeah, it's just really, it's so wonderful on the page and off it. All right. Henry Seven Renaud Jr. does not Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, or Instagram. It is not that he is scared of change or stuck fast in the past. Instead, he has learned from experience that the crack pipe kills. His work is published in Superstition Review, Tri-Quarterly, Poets Reading the News, Prairie Schooner, Zone 3, and Rigorous. His work has also been nominated multiple times for the Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net. Henry, I will unmute you. There we go.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here today, and I hope I can stay within my bounds here. I'm gonna have to read it off the screen. I wanted to read it out of one of the books, but I'd have to pile up too many books here. So I was sitting up one day thinking about aliens, and two questions came into my head. You know, why don't people believe that aliens exist? And if an alien were to come to Earth, how would you describe the human race? And I came up with this poem. At the time, I was working in Forest City, which is an old mining town up in the Sierra Nevada in the Tahoe National Forest. It's way up in the mountains. And this poem starts with two epigraphs. The first is from a police blotter, Nevada County Sheriff's Office. 8/21/14, 1:15 a.m. in the morning. A woman from Connie Drive reported people peeking through her windows. And the second one is November 7th, 2015, Los Angeles, California. Millions witnessed a strange light in the evening sky. The government said it was a missile test. But was it? We must ask ourselves, are we truly alone, or are we being lied to? The truth is still out there. And this is from the 2015 six-part miniseries for X-Files that they add on. And I was really stuck in that question of, alien was to come to you, how would you, what defining trait would you attribute to humanity here on Earth? And I came up with this poem. It's called X-File E11, E11649. And E11649 is actually my parole number from prison time I've done. But anyway, we always thought that alien life would come from the stars. Slow motion, city-sized saucers reaching the constellation-spattered night sky. Plummet of bioluminescence from the exposed motor of eternity. We imagine leviathans sharing like lightning from sepia-hued thunderheads. From the darkness they would fall, a great cloud with fire enveloping it, a wheel within a wheel, the wonder of it all, pulsing multicolored lights, and tectonic bass boom, and ominous reverberation echoing like bronze smoke from the silver glass of awe. Would they come, ghostly pale and naked, their hooded reptilian eyes of veiled intent, like a malevolent pack stealth of wolves, their lipless language, a telepathic infinity of nuance between each otherworldly utterance, the emaciated arms outstretched toward us. Friend or foe? Would we welcome them? Or 911? Please state the nature of your emergency. Spread panic. Would our war machine stumble at a loss for tolerance or protocol? And in each of us, only a distant fictional hope that Fox Mulder and Dana Scully would soon arrive. The FBI, the alien blue luminescence, the ultraviolet neon of forest between the trees. Would the aliens from elsewhere finally unveil the mystery of us all, explain why our predatory ways only spoke to something furtive and feral inside? The real enemy, actually us, our violence and immorality, a red bleakness in need of some instruction, our earthward pointed surveillance satellites and Star Wars weapons platforms, our patriotic Trump stance of xenophobia that speaks to something fearful inside us all, our longing for fame and fortune, heard echoing from temples like a perpetual Ivada of obsession, the squalor of hunger and dispossession, the unending hemophilia of war, shaping ourselves into a question mark of irony, despite our always believing that evil, malevolent life would come from the stars. That's my take on aliens. And I often thought about it. I have this story I've been working on for years where the aliens come down in city-sized saucers, over every capital and say, I want to talk to a poet, and he's going to decide whether all humanity lives or dies. And I've got like about 12 pages written on it. And I can't ever finish it because I keep coming up, I keep hoping that as a species, we would actually be good. I mean, I think every human wants to be good, but we can't because of the governmental structures we use for our society. And what we're made to believe is what we need, what we should have, what we need to be, instead of what we actually need to live. Um, I straight up, I mean, and part of one of the stories I wrote where I told them, as long as you can, as long as the people that I care about exist, you can take care, you can kill everybody else, and we'll start a new society built better. That was one track I was thinking of taking in it, but it's too pessimistic. So one day I'll finish it. This next one is my take on people with cell phones in public. It's called A Plethora of Truth That Always Hurts. God only took back cigarettes because cell phones were an easier way to get rid of idiots. X marks the conscripted oblivious with earbuds and head down texting into oncoming foot traffic, insinuating themselves into lives they seek to touch without bruising. the starter gun of ringtone bleats. Who could be anyone? Who could be the raincoat stranger with sweets who says they're not? Or the criminally insane who can touch you anywhere at any time? A digital stealth of acronym text, the transcribed gibberish of the Twitterverse, the dismembered syllables of their heedless, stumbling distracted into the blind intersection of rude self-entitlement, colliding the pedaling downhill fixie bike or triggering the modern street scene. The driver with her head down, texting, and doesn't notice the light has turned green, highlights the gall of self-interest, the one drop of toxic water pushing and shoving into the heaving ocean, the accident waiting to happen, prodding the driver in the car behind her, who honks angrily while talking illegally on a handheld cell phone. His small and shiny universe with everyone he thinks he knows inside it. The millennial clone, but microwave imprinted hearts, dangerously contracted to instant gratification. What they were taught as children, but came to realize what they had been taught wasn't true when they asked for water and were given gasoline. Their fascination, a tunnel vision of false expectations, slanting into a foreboding gale force wind. Their ocean fathom deep most wanting, the fear of being, having nothing, a rifle scope aperture of obsession. Always the me, more, and debit card all mine, like blood splashed, bright red in the distance. Turn from the algorithmic grain of truth into a cell phone's shuttered radius, and wanting to be social network magnetic, the glitterati celebrity someone, famous for being famous and restless with it, expecting to invoke God by speed dial, to light the blue flash paper of fame and prostitute their monstrosity, scrolling their last ditch effort to bring the infinite under control, to set the universe in motion about themselves, is confirmation that idiots should never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by stupidity. That's my take on cell phones. I never carry a cell phone. Everybody's mad at me. I've never carried a cell phone, and I grew up where we had party lines where you had to pick up the phone and tell your neighbor to get off the phone so you can make a phone call. And they had the rotary dial, the whole 9 yards. I mean, I just don't see the the hype in it. I mean, I just don't get it. Maybe, like I said, to me, cell phones are a new form of crack. Because people, like I remember in Davis, one of the things that happened when I was living in Davis, California, there was a 15-year-old girl crossing the train track. She drops her phone. The train's right on top of her. But to get to that phone, she ran in front of the train to grab her phone. And I mean, this is the last phone call she ever made. I mean, for people to be that, addicted to a phone, I mean, I just don't get it. Maybe I'm just getting old. Yeah. But let me see. I wanted to do one that got published in Unlikely Stories, and it's called Transmigration, #1, and it's dedicated to the poet Ewa Cruciel. The noose of anxiety hangs itself from a tree branch, commits suicide, dangling from a greater enmity, demanding tribute, draws blood from a rumble swept up in exultation of itself. Semantic molecules translating the air to conflagration, the exploding and incineration of the sacrifice of the permanent on the altar of the immediate. Hope is a leap of faith wide as peripheral vision across the unfired coal of night, or the pale blue moon of her eyes, a gravitational pull of seduction, my awe-struck fascination, but the taste of ozone, coppery, in my mouth. And let me see. Oh, um, lately, they've discovered a short story writer named Dorothea Tannen. She was lately rediscovered, and I bought a couple of her books. Man, she was an excellent writer, but she only published, I think, like 2 or 3 books, in her whole life. But I wrote a poem based on one of her short stories that I had read, and the short story was called "Dream It or Leave It," and her name is Dorothea Tannen, and the title of the poem is "Illume Number 8." This is the story of how she began to remember. This woman who caressed and shaped the flame, dread woman in siren red velvet gown, denies that she is a villain, but the world will not believe her. Her heart like deep, dark water, the perfect hiding place, the feminine tents held as collateral, hobbled red with heavy apprehension that she has come too far to turn back now. Her westernized soul weighed 3/4 of an ounce less than her anxiety, a blood-stained red as imminent danger and guarded utterances, the menses red of forsaken, hopeless, into the wind and fallen face down into the mud. But in spite of all this, she is impelled by some curious force to open every door, to enter every briar block cave, to seek among the canted ominously and fallen tombstones, to lie down in condemned tenements of heroin dreams. She dares the shrill, stiffened cry of fear skimming water in attempt of flight, despite the possibility that absolutely nothing good can come of this. In the distance, the column smoke of panic, smudging auguries into the wind, the feral whiff of predators. This woman, still cultivating her futuristic dream machine, her subconscious, found abandoned under a pile of flat stones in a shadowy glade, a sort of harness made from bands of gossamer cloth knotted together, crimson red and very beautiful, and she, fascinated by the intricacy of its design, satisfying herself of its proper positioning, quickly puts it on. This woman, endeavoring to persevere, a patient lioness stealth of defiance, reclaimed her agency through making and naming. This woman, holding out her arms and taking a deep breath, gunshot skyward, testing the gravity of so vast, can reach forever. Let me forget my name in in the frozen rapture of exhilaration's embrace. Yes, let me know not my name, nor the number of my days. Do I have time for one more?
Sure, why not?
Do I have time for one more? I don't want to go over.
Oh, we're
Um,
having fun.
let me see. I got one that I'm gonna do now. I've sent it in. I've sent it in 162 times, and it's got rejected. So day before yesterday, I sent it into another magazine. So to me, a rejection letter is like a green light. I'm colorblind, and I remember when I lived in Davis, I had one whole wall wallpapered. I actually wallpapered it like an art piece with all rejection letters that I got over about 10 years. And people would come over and they'd really trip on it. But I got this one poem, and for the life of me, I guess nobody likes it. I like it. I love the poem, but there's one line in here, and I'm not going to tell you what that line is, but I figure when I finally get that one line right, this poem is going to go viral on the web. I think that's the one line and I can't for the life of me change it. This poem is called Insecurity. This is a story with its mouth wired shut. The expendable innocent marking 25 to life in a concrete 6 by 12. A nothing really ever dies, pondering the Mobius strip of retribution, while wolfing down a bowl of Rice Krispies, the holy trinity of snap, crackle, and pop. Kim Kardashian traversing rice paper, minus thong, while sexting on her smartphone, or Rush Limbaugh smoking crack while oogling Think Pink centerfold spread glossy magazines, trajectories in abstraction to interpretation, a satirical animation of images fading to contextual incongruity, like ghosts drowning on oxygen, their hunger, a scapegoat metaphor, hunger. This is a story with its eyes closed. Virtues all went their flagrant narcissist ways. The lingering fear stretched tight by false evidence, appearing real as treasure buried next to burnt map. X marks a spot, something clawing up from cold silence, flowering stealthily from the ground, a petty cliche for better than it used to be in feints of uprising. It's what the hand does, where the blind eye leads. This is the story with its ears covered. The crescendo of Spectrum by Florence plus the Machine on iPhone full blast, while viewing an installation of petrorims of plastic twisted into kilotons of strangle, bread bag plastic clips and bottle caps and zip ties, the nuclear bomb-proof plastic packaging, and pill bottles devoid of pharmaceutical euphoria, placed just so next to the warning sparkle of discarded bicycle reflectors. This is a story of suddenly woke, like right in front of me. There's this woman dragging a crazy dude with her car. She's going really fast, and the man's on the outside trying to get in. A cop tackles him, and a really hardcore cage fight ensues. There's a lot of cursing, biting, hair pulling, and the electric crackle of a taser. They roll underneath a parked truck and come out the other side. Choreographed pugilism entangled in the testosterone of measured dicks, rabbit punches, and fear. Then they both get taken down by a clown on a unicycle. Like, who the hell gets hit by a unicycle? And that last poem, 99% of it is stuff that actually happened to me that I've seen. I was in Sacramento, this car zoomed by, and this guy's hanging onto the side of the car, screaming at his old lady and trying to get at her. And she's flying down the car, and a cop comes running into the street the other way and tackles him. Bam! Oh man, hey, they're crazy in the Capitol. Hey, you guys were great. Kayla and Mark, I enjoyed your poetry, and I'm gonna sit here and listen to the rest of it. But I really like your magazine. You have some the writers in there. I mean, you guys take quirky writing to a whole new place. I mean, the Howie Good poem. I love Howie Good's poetry, and I read them this morning, and I was reading them, and I have a lot of almost a whole book with short pieces that almost exactly like he writes. But I've never tried to publish them because I'm worried. Most of the publishers today, they don't write long lines no more. And when you cut off someone's line and you put it below and you tab it over, it
Mhm.
messes up the rhythm of the line. And I have that trouble. I turn down a lot of my stuff that I can send in because their printing formats aren't compatible with the way I write.
I've noticed that, and it's a problem on our end because I had a book that had long lines, so we went ahead and made it 8.5 by 11, a full sheet of
Yeah.
paper sized book, and the bookstores he took it to would not believe it wasn't self-published. They're like, oh no, only self-publishers use this format. I'm like, no, we made a choice because of
But
it was a
I
street.
want to show you. Have one like this. But
Hmm.
the thing about D.A. Powell, he's
Hmm.
got like he's got one in here where the page actually pulls out. Yeah, we should,
Oh, okay.
yeah. See the page. Let me see if I can show you this. It's in there, but the page actually it pulls out.
Hardcore.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd like something like that done. And I got a bunch of stuff. But I love the work that is on your site, and I have
Thank you.
this long list of poems I put on my computer. One day I'm gonna do an anthology.
Hmm.
The name of it is gonna be The Poems That I Fucking Like. That's the name of it. But I've
Excellent.
got like 600 poems from all over, and there are four of them, from your site that I've read. And every time you send a newsletter, I read them all. And a lot of times you're one of my favorite sites. This stuff.
Thank you.
So I wish
Well, we
you
love
luck.
publishing you. Thank you.
Wish you luck and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much for reading with us today. That was a great set. Who was the author you mentioned? Dorothy.
Dorothea Tanning. Dorothea Tanning. She's got her book is let me see.
Yeah, because that was a great poem you wrote after her story.
It's kind of long, but she's got the short story, the one I named.
Hmm.
Um, this is her book. It's called Calm Sea Prosperous Voyage. And
Got it. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Calm Sea
Everybody see
Prosperous
that?
Voyage. Her name is Bette Howland, and I mean she writes them. She's a hell of a writer, and when you read her life story, you can go to a public space,
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
magazine. They actually revived her writing. And
Excellent.
the story is really interesting, of how they came about finding her writing. She
I've
was
got
shopping in the used.
3 or 4 of her books.
Yeah,
Cool.
she's good, isn't she?
She's excellent, and she's
Yeah.
out. She's out there.
But I really loved her work, and it's inspired 2 or 3 poems that I've written. And
Cool.
she was an artist too. So, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Jared Schickling, who's the author of the new unlikely book, Handling Filth, Simple Sabotage Field Manual, named after the CIA field manual. His poems, essays, and interviews have appeared in many journals, some now defunct, including Interim, Marshhawk Review, 1913, A Journal of Forms, Drunken Boat, Bombay Gin, Eco Poetics, Exquisite Corpse, Cordite Poetry Review, Book Slut, Literary Imagination, The Cafe Review, Posit, Borderlands, Texas Poetry Review, Big Bridge, Jacket and Jacket 2, Little Red Leaves, Poetry Northwest, Word for Word, A Journal of New Writing, and anthologized in the End of the World Project Anthology, and Resist Much, Obey Little, inaugural poems to the resistance. He is the author of several poetry books and chapbooks. He edited A Lear Bird, selected poems of Michael Farrell, and for some years edited a freely distributed international mimeozine ecolinguistics. He has worked in various editorial capacities for Alice James Books, Tarpaulin Sky, the Center for Literary Publishing at Colorado State University, New American Press, and Mayday Magazine, Reconfigurations, a journal for poetics and poetry, literature, and culture, and Behind the Scenes for the recent Poetics for the More Than Human World, an anthology of poetry and commentary. He teaches English in Buffalo Public Schools and edits Delete Press and the Mute Canary, publishers of poetry. Jared, thanks so much for being here today. Asked to unmute, and here we go.
You read the whole thing. I
did.
sent you something shorter, but thank you. Yeah, and it was wonderful to hear everybody read. Mark, I've read your work, but I've never heard you read. Henry, this is the first time for me. Kayla as well. They were phenomenal. I am just going to read the poems, no preamble to the book and no talking in between. And I am going to use my phone to time this. I believe it won't run over. It will not run over, I promise. This first poem has a footnote, which I'll read. As the infected are reporting a loss of smell before feeling sick, by April of 2020, the American news cycle is mired in baseless claims that a newly identified novel coronavirus may be no worse than the seasonal flu. 8 months later, at the end of the year, after a 15.9% increase in the age-adjusted mortality rate, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, attributes 377,883 deaths to COVID-19 in the US alone. Cough, chuckled I, yes, cough, how I flung some spit as passions became my decongestant. I'd seen their colds near, a potter's field, cough, tormentor of my dreams. Once upon a midnight Rhea, cough, said I, thing of Qatar. A plaque would be laid in their sternutative grasses, in nature's sternutative vomit, deep into that darkness, gulping, cough, chuckled I, yes, cough, but I would awake and fleer at these sternutations. And so I knew the headache, the tussle, sneezy, sniffling. Once I lay engaged in smelling of nothing, and on that day my soul grew congested. The Strange and Amazing Infection, an auto-generated American poem. Whose infection is that? I think I know. Its owner is quite happy though. Full of joy, like a vivid rainbow, I watch him laugh, I cry hello. He gives his infection a shake and coughs until his belly aches. The only other sounds the break of distant waves and markets awake. The infection is strange, amazing and deep, but he has promises to keep. After cake and induced sleep, sweet dreams come to him cheap. He rises from his gentle bed with thoughts of productivity in his head. He eats his brains with lots of bread, gets ready for the day ahead. Once upon a midnight decongestant, when much I marveled the Rhea trench mouth, it left me lonely, sneezy, wheezing. Cough, said I, thing of wheeze. Cough, chuckled I, yes, cough. Shall I do the cough? Cough, tormentor of my dreams. I still marvel the congestant mucus. Once I sat engaged in spitting, once upon a midnight Rhea, when I think of the cough, and passion became the antipyretic squirt. On that day my soul grew silent. I awoke and seeped in it like some fluid, deep into that darkness gargling. Once upon a midnight disinfectant, I sat engaged in bleaching in a kingdom full of hand washes. How I'd pour today the happy mercurochrome. 'Twas passion then, such freezable deodorizer to have but awoken with some activated charcoal. For graves, you see, you accept placebos after the zinc is gone. Our quarantine dance with our sky and the storms, a cancellation of the sea, shall we speak the sound? Your quarantined hands once on our hills, this simple passionate strength of the spring. Your quarantined colors streamed from the wild grass, a hope has come, and the day is mine. The quarantined marble, our flowers seem, this lie in the sunlight, the palace. A quarantined man in the calm waters of his throne, his desire dies in the blossoms. Enter the crucifix, the worst trial of all, when the day is spent. For a chance to begin, a pesky murder of crows sends customers running to the vans of strangers again in the box store parking lot, ruining nights and resurrecting time, restoring balance in the gloaming. Thanks to the lightness of some things, carried some loads turned so heavy and wide that help is needed to hoist them. I still hear the warbling voices of my memory, pouring out a carton of milk over a magical doll with no arms or legs, but earrings and beads, a colorful cone shape wrapped in a rosary, whose name shall be born, I would learn later. How with hair sensing the static of competing poles, the ancestor leaned back, raising its abdomen to the sky, and took off, leaving strands of silk so deeply soaked and moved. I slid the door quietly open when the sky creatures cleared and clouds parted, the pavement smelled and sirens arrived, and thought, where's my mask? The vinegar of fermented fruits is good for my bite, tincture of ledum, calustri, thistle, but otherwise I'd apply tourniquets of dental floss, open wound, suck straight out the poison. Should the bone break, rub comfrey into it and set it with twigs. So staunch the wound with yellow flag or purple loosestrife. Stitch the wound just as you do with boiled flax thread. Boil and oil the needles and tweezers. Soothe the wounds in poppy milk. Because if it comes in the swab to stop the spread, the rest can never happen. When it comes in the cold dampness of the swab, such healing power, soft and gentle from cotton farm to factory, and so it arrived in the swab, nothing ever happens. In the boot slapping dance, music spreads on violin strings, wooden flutes, a panpipe, hollowed out mouse bones, and a deerskin drum. Damp people hum whose night winds on as the thrush introduces the nightingale. Creation, this is a bit of an origin story or my attempt at one and having fun with it. Creation, enamored with creation, the unachievable refusing the achievable, it figures of figures in the swing of beginnings. There were only hallucinating springs and instant affection. With a sprout of understanding, a critical bloom, studying itself, branchless animation, living chisels living to refined song, perception of glimpses, traded juices merrily, some chewable implement. With sticky members, jaws decorated, the stare ascends from the carrion, liberated from its shape, by a pure whoosh of photons, hues forge, and multiplying, it finally sees, prances. Boiler of refined hysteria in Milky Way's chief pest, this tumult generating its poverty of recall, surplus of material. Rains came, floods, merged, diminishments, for which passing thought did this pursue sabotage, merging and remerging, muzzling innumerable sputters, the rain sliced to the marrow with bleak teeth, as if the object might resent its breed. Its cargo rattled, a cup. There was naught but swells, these feckless swells, augmenting the chaos, masking the unpleasant display. Presence of the swab needs scabs making news, making swabs. Snag. A fluted wind whistles -3 million ants in the woodpecker's holes. Dreams are laid into the curious noses and work their way into the throat, nestling there. So said the ape. The polecat paralyzes the frog to keep it fresh. Chimpanzees, natural-born terrorists. The jingle of healing swabs, too. So much intrigue, hard to bear. Dolls are fastened with wings, seeds of the maple. An ant hauling a chestnut, husk looks like hedgehogs, scaring the field mice. Near the ruined white box, old grapes resembling a rodent's poo dries in the meadow. Poison in the powder spread across the reindeer moss is effective. The livelihood was gone. The ugliest reactions once prosecuted, mistreated in a hall of mirrors, quite friendly, but blind as bats. And I have two more. Poetry speaks more to the sicknesses in being, even if of the poet's life is still the most solicitous. It is not to dissatisfy anyone. More visitors come here, that's true. Among me visitors and a weakness for the stray. We push it by pure wish and conscience of a certain risk. My door was never provided with a doorbell. Recognizable from a distance, at least I hope for it, because I have had a heart valve for the hospitality which submits to no law. Huge or cramped according to mood, paradoxically fortified, transparent, weak, but holding out, displayed in any weather. This forgettable footprint, it has been so home, masks and holes, that it became, and the whole mist was taken. History, this practical joker, ingested in another way. My peeling destiny should have been to be a textbook, a lead one probably. I would have been able to not go to school. It is necessary to know how to manhandle myths. Let me just say that we took this incidentally. To tease, to whom I had borrowed what they lent, brief like them. Poetry was only the way, among others. And there was mention of cicadas earlier, so I figured have the cicada poem. So, in tree branches somewhere, a brood of strange nymphs hatch, fall, and burrow into the ground. For the next 17 years, they'll feed on sap from the roots of their natal trunks. They'll need to transform 5 times before tunneling back to the surface, where on a midsummer day, the largest migration on the planet sluggishly appears. It emerges from soil, cascading back up into the canopy, where they transform one last time. Young but old, slow and many, soon the wood's inhabitants are gorging themselves on these elderly, winged babies who mate, lay eggs, and die. There are far too many to stomach, and that summer, a spongy carpet of decomposing bodies will rise from the forest floor, whose eggs are now wriggling in the trees. Periodical cicadas are tactical, practicing what science calls predator satiation. In the years that they die, experts say tree rings record visible growth spurts. Even considering king goat is skittering spray as not belonging, losing rope for its reign does not guarantee only silhouettes last. The transmission of character needed, no one remembers the names of well-wishers. Time halts the arc of a missile to keep a low profile. Thank you.
Jared, thank you so much. That was a trip because you know, it was great to have you here and you were fantastic up on stage and that was such a cool experience. But now you know, talking about sickness and your hoodie and your shadows, you know, it's like you're doing a theatrical bit, you know, it's like you're revisiting the Rona in a very active way. It's kind of a trip. Completely different experience. Will you explain the title real quick?
Sure, handling filth. So there's 5 sections, I believe. First deals with our family, I believe, contracted coronavirus in January of 2020. There were no tests at the time, so it's unconfirmed, but in hindsight, it looks like that's what it was. So some of these poems came out of that. And it does deal with a bout of infection. In fact, it's titled Infection. The second section is the subtitle of the book, Simple Sabotage Field Manual. That is the name of a manual put out by the CIA and immediately after World War II, or towards the end of World War II. It's widely available on the internet, and it details easy ways that anybody can sabotage a nation's wartime effort. And there's an innumerable, the menu is big, let's put it that way. And then after that comes a pandemic memoir, more or less. It covers the early days of the pandemic. There's and it's an indictment of political leadership and just my utter disgust at everything that was going on at that time, as I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So yeah, handling filth, and then it goes on, Data Befall, Alibi. Those poems fit right in, but those came out of my experience reading and attempting to translate Abdel Latif Labi. All of the titles are anagrams of his name, but they happen to work, so those were included. And Reports is the final section, which is sort of a, I don't know, a dystopian bird book embedded in other eco-poetic writing. So handling filth.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're ready. It's time for Meg Tuite. Meg, Tuite. You wish it was pronounced Tweet. I wish it was pronounced Tweet. It doesn't matter. It's her name. It's Meg Tuite. She's the author of a novel and stories, Domestic Apparition, a short story collection bound by Blue, Meet My Haze, won the Twin Antlers Collaborative Poetry Award from Artistically Declined Press for her poetry collection, Bear Bowl Swinging, as well as 5 chapbooks of short fiction, flash, poetic prose, and multi-genre writing. She teaches workshops and online classes through Bending Genres and is an associate editor at Narrative Magazine. Her work has been published in over 600 literary magazines and over 15 anthologies, including Choose Wisely, 35 Women Up to No Good. She has been nominated over 15 times for the Pushcart Prize, won first and second place in Prick of the Spindle contest, is a 5-time finalist at Glimmer Train, a finalist of the Gertrude Stein Award, and won 3rd prize in the Bristol Short Story Contest. She is also the editor of 8 anthologies, and a story of hers is included in the Best Small Fictions of 2021. Meg, take it away. Let's see here, are you unmuted?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Mark. Thank Cassandra. Henry, you rocked it. And same with Jared and Kayla. Thank you so much. It's so great to read with all of you. And Mark, there was a Mark. Wait, yeah. So the first one is from The White Van by Jonathan Penton. Published this with Unlikely Stories. Yes. Okay. I'm reading Plunge. Hands behind glass, disarray in head, smell of starched grins and blurs of clocks, camouflage time. Who says a castle can't rant out a whole orgy of Bible, room by room? His kids say he slipped the Dahlia into a narrative. peopled by the blue transparency of her veins, pulled up to the skin like someone's lower lip. Slow and deranged martinis guide themselves in clear missiles towards mouths vacant with ruin. The gowned throng spend ample time on upper lids and toenails, depleting energy for the thrill of taunting the hacked starlet. Prepubescent girls flavor rooms for Man Ray and a swirl with the surreal tracks of Hollow. Remixing their angled limbs, terror manifests a floral creature in wait for bulb and burial. Powders blossom in bubbled drinks, rumble distant worlds saturated with adult tongues for hands. Doors lurk sleepy, teeming how little breath is needed to bruise, bleed. In this castle, mornings never bleary plundered deaths. Flesh and bones zone out fiddle with zippers and tremors. Damn if somebody isn't leaking horrors of childhood. Men decree motion, play with their trousers and find other men. Girls climb through sabotage, bend into each other. A table displays the supremacy of defects. Men who dread desperation load up plates with sausage and ham. Wait, did I get that part? Sorry. Fresh in wrinkles and grimaces, they rush to the basement of denial. Girls crumpled with rash thighs and blazing rectums drink orange juice, huge with the plunge of the sea. Someone dies. Someone sucks pipes and yells, "Fuck off." Someone lies when police arrive. Someone cries, eats, and purges for days. Someone haunts their self and the quiet sky that follows them. Someone has no desire to exist. That's the first one from here. I'm just picking one from each. So this is Meet My Haze. Homemade woman. Mom clung to the ham hocks of a smack-mouth infantry of a man and all the kitchen utensils for over 50 years. She baked pies, cakes, cookies, casseroles, broiled chops, steaks, turkeys, and bacon, while his face and ass blew out the windows, the children, the TV. Rose-scented and silent, she cooked and heaped plates, kept family from expecting anything more than a second helping from her trembling hands and lips. Dad's jaws were wrenches, screwdrivers, drill bits, shears, bottle openers. They unhinged, turned, flipped, severed, chiseled through, blasted foundations and stifled oxygen. The daughters grew up fat with fear. Winds battered inside them every time Dad slithered into rooms, grinding his sour stench into their soft folds, while Mom dissolved into the ingredients. Bent as far away from Dad until brittle enough to crack, Mom and the girls had a knack for burning and cutting the underbelly of things. The word mother meant tepid, undercooked, bland. Her daughters took on the flapping pages of a history that walked ahead of itself while Mom cleaned and cooked. When they were kids, they slumbered in single beds with wallpaper that cascaded some kind of Disney phantasmal parade of shackles. Beds were perilous as depression. They gazed into their father's pasty skin, more often than the ceiling's scarred indents. gnawing and gnashing asleep, had them in braces until their teeth grew together out of one prison. When polyps crowded through Dad's colon in a buffet of stuffed mushrooms, the rectum, lungs, liver, brain, and spinal cord had already saturated through the bloodstream in one creamy, rich sauce. Mom was unconscious in bed 1 month after Dad died. The daughter sat for what clocks could never decipher and listened to the dying woman's open-mauled mouth gurgle and what sounded more like a pot simmering than words. When the final breath steamed out of her, they witnessed the act of a body hardening into a slow freeze. Her eyes had long been fish-hooked by other worlds. The daughters picked at invisible stains, didn't know what to do or say. They searched through the back of her closet until they discovered a turquoise dress that flared out like their mother never did. They put the dress on her, carefully moving awkward, heavy limbs. Arms flopped and contorted without protest. This dead mother of the pseudo-living was finally transported from an artifice dicing onions, scraping bowls, forking pie crust edges, rolling dough, and stuffing turkeys. They took turns spraying her decaying body in lavender water. But her orifices were open caverns of festering ulcers and release. They studied a moldy old photo album. The woman in the photos wore a vapid smile and hair that wrapped around her head like overcooked noodles. The dead woman in the turquoise dress had a translucent sheen to her skin. The bruises matched her outfit, spreading precious obelisk storms up to the surface. Her veined hands folded over each other. "Look," said the younger daughter, "she isn't shaking anymore." The older daughter studied the immobile limbs. A quake shuddered inside her. That's that one. There. This is Domestic Apparition. It's the first collection that I had. Very short, titled Religion. Every night, my grandmother limps out of a liquor store with a submissive stoop of the genuflected and the promise of a liturgy to come in a bottle. A radiant old face with a slight tremor of the merciful, holding a brown paper bag reverently out in front of her with both hands, as a priest holds his chalice. And what would be the difference? She has been living, breathing, and sucking down the blood of Christ in a lifetime of unparalleled singularity that the clergy can only read about and shamelessly attempt to enact, mouthing their long-winded, incredulous interpretations of the Bible, done up like showgirls in their mawkish vestments. That's that one. Okay. And this is the one, Bare Bulb Swinging, that I wrote with Heather Fowler and Michelle Real, titled Hemisphere. Cracking the skull open is the easy part. No section of me has been encased in any material that any aspirin bottle didn't have over me, with all its cotton arrows and childproofing. You have split it wide with your hands, no more difficult than a French baguette without the French. My brain has always been softer than a boiled egg, sitting in its little cup waiting to be devoured. So you had to tap at it with your fork to get to the watery center, weigh it, check out how much heft it could hold without collapsing. In its 3 pounds pinkish gray and spilling raw yolk into your hands, the lobes pull apart like Play-Doh, and you work the convoluted tangle of it as it unwinds like a telephone cord curled in a fist around blurred gristle of me. How many times I bang someone because they call me pretty, bash myself against resistant objects when they call me ugly, dance around pieces of myself when they call back. Does a frontal lobe show its own silent film when you squeeze it through your fingers? My parietal lobe listens when you say, she is drunk on her own scars. She has no lungs and all belly. She hides whiskey bottles that rat out on her face. You squish the occipital lobe, jelly shuddering and panicked, damaged by its own language. It talks to myself more than you. It answers myself more than you. It has sex with myself more than you. And still I am a floor model, manipulated by the ornamental plant of you. So what now, the temporal lobe? Once upon a time, there was a kid in a cubbyhole in the back of a closet, framed by the beast that you didn't know was me. I took scissors to her hair, spit on the color of no rescue, read books that deleted nothing of the 3 pounds that you cradled in your palms, assured you that you unraveled the me that foreshadows the range of my madness and yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Meg. That was fantastic. Wow.
Thank you.
I hadn't heard that second story before. What book's that from?
Meet My Haze. That was the last one published before you published White Van.
Very cool.
My Haze.
Very cool. Who's that by? Who published it?
That was Big Table Publishing with you know her.
Excellent.
Robin Stratton.
Robin,
Oh.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, what a fantastic set. Yeah, marvelous and alarming as always. Yeah, this has been a great feature. I've had a lot of fun. Next, we're going to turn it over to Cassandra, who's going to run the open mic. Mark, do you have some announcements you want to do before then?
Just to let everyone know that this was such a wonderful reading and very intense. Thank you so much, Meg, Mark, Henry, Kayla, and Jared. Next week, we actually have something special. It's not on the LibBalm website, I just noticed, but we do have Alfred Korn and Tracy K. Smith reading with us next week. So do join us for that. And then thereafter, the week after, we have a Lavender Ink special with all sorts of interesting guests yet to be announced.
Is this on LibBalm?
Yes.
Tracy K. Smith is going to be on LibBalm next week.
That is correct.
Can I ask Meg a question right quick?
Sure.
Meg, the name of your book is Domestic Apparition.
Mhm.
How'd you come up with that title?
I was a domestic apparition.
Oh,
Answer it for you, Henry.
Huh?
Did that answer it for you, Henry?
Yeah. I was just thinking, I want to use that for a title for a poem that I was writing that's untitled right now.
Cool.
What a good, great title.
Thank you.
Domestic Apparition. I
Yeah.
thought of ghosts drowning on oxygen.
That works.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, let's go to Cassandra for the open mic tonight.
Well, before we have open mic, I'd like to ask co-founder Larissa Schmilo to read for us. It's always a joy when she does. So I think she might have something for us, and I'd be so delighted if she would read for us.
Thank you very much, Cassandra, and thank you. Unlikely readers, you were fantastic. What a wonderful reading. Intense, definitely intense. That's what I come to associate with Unlikely. Anyway, my poem is called Anna Karenina #MeToo. And what you need to know is that Prince Dmitry Merezhkovsky was a Slavic literary critic. Anna Karenina #MeToo. Merezhkovsky, to you I was a mare ridden badly by a man, and because of him, his error, I had to be destroyed. And Lev, my dear, you never gave me my own voice. You didn't dare. What did I talk about when I did talk, after all? Abortion with Dolly? Every damn thing Vronsky did that I did better? The problem was not that I was sexual. Men, you count on that. The problem was that I was smart. But sexual women must be killed. All the books attest to that. Merezhkovsky permeates the consciousness of Slavic scholars still, is the Anna story still, but I fought you most, Lev. You knew soon into the novel that the problem was not one woman and one man, it was all women, all men. You had Vronsky climb in society while I even knew more about horses than him. I was the scarlet woman, though our offense was the same. Did I abandon my child? Or did a martinet bar me from him? She holds Vronsky back. The guilt. Oh, there is no talking to you. You sent me the dream that haunted your ruling class sleep, a peasant with an iron, the proletariat that said, fuck you and your landlord's way of life. You killed me with the railroad built for you by them because you had to. Where was your resurrection then? You repudiated Karenina, it's true, but you abandoned me to my fate. And so, Lev, I still struggle a century and a half later to have my story told. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing. That was a fantastic poem. I love Sexual Women Must Be Killed. All the books attest to that. Thank you so much. So to open the open mic, we have DeWitt. He's in his famous chair. He's looking very dapper in a jacket last time I saw him in my little grid, my Zoom grid. DeWitt, are you there? Can we hear something amazing?
I don't know about amazing, but as you get warmer, we get colder in Boston.
I might wear a bikini next week. It'll be so hot. I'm joking. Anyway.
No comment. So this is called On Character, and I think that's a word that we don't think about as much as we ought to. Moral, psychological, or literary, round or flat, sound or flawed, false or true, integrity, metal, values that she lives and stands for. Woman for all seasons, fair weather friend, self-improvement, character building, Ben Franklin's checklist of virtues. Among the 13, industry, chastity, humility. Then the note to self, imitate Jesus and Socrates, which sent D.H. Lawrence howling. The psyche is impulsive and instinctual, Lawrence believed, not rational or mechanistic. She's a real character, meaning oddball, eccentric, laughable, admirable, or obsessed, like twisted apples with sweetness gathered on one side. Johnson's comedy of humors supposed an imbalance of secretions, liquids, from gallbladder, spleen, heart, and brain, an overdose of one determined personality type, choleric, quick to anger, melancholic, gloomy, sanguine, optimistic, phlegmatic, cool-headed. Most women have no characters at all, confides an 18th century lady to Alexander Pope, leading him to condemn and admire, quote, "'Tis to their changes half their charms we owe, power all their end, but beauty all the means. Woman's at best a contradiction still. Know thyself, to thine own self be true." Polonius, stuffed shirt and hypocrite to Laertes, or Lord Chesterfield to his son. Enter Shrink's Inc., Freud and Jung, therapy by talk or drug. I wot not by what power, but some power it is, I've come to my natural taste. Egos pre-programmed by religion, schools, commercials, or Hollywood. Borges theorized the creator of Falstaff and Cleopatra, each a carnival of types defying summation, had become instinctively adept at pretending to be somebody so that no one would suspect he was in fact nobody. Self and idea of self. How do I catch my own imagination? Who do I mean to be? Who can I stand to be?
Wow, you know, I'm obsessed with intertextuality, so that was a total trip for me. I loved it. I love the character building. I love women for all seasons because I love man for all seasons. And my favorite quote, "To thine own self be true." You got that one in there as well, with industry, chastity, and humility. It was perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, we have the Shaman at Lip Balm, and Mark has asked him to read the first poem in his Shaman in the Library, so he may hold it up.
I will hold it up, and I will post a link in the chat. And by the way, the first poem is the title poem, so here we go. The Shaman in the Library. Naked except for a loincloth, ritual scars, and streaks of red clay, he attends the staff meeting. Bowl haircut, back straight, face impassive. Why is he here? No one knows. Since the library opened, he's pushed the loaded book cart and replaced Suzanne Summers and Gwyneth Paltrow in the diet and exercise section. Trembling patrons pay late fees promptly when he stands by the circulation desk. A few parents complain their teenagers shadow him, chasing rumors of hallucinogenic ayahuasca vines hidden in the botany section, and after the singed carpet incident, management forbade cooking fires. No more fresh rabbit meat, only packets of microwaved cassava. He pricks his fingertip at shift's end and fills out his time sheet with human blood. It's a good life. His employer provides health insurance and a retirement plan. But when the wild parrots come to strip fruit from nearby trees, he remembers the land of his birth, his vision quest, fasting to the point of death, and how his spirit animal came to him. He remembers inhabiting the jaguar's body, its savage strength, and the power he gained, power to take life and heal. Free from culture and convention, he hunted at night, the heart-pounding chase, the taste of wild boar's blood.
Well, you had me at naked except for a loincloth. It was so good. There is no other voice like John Wessex, so you need to buy his book.
No unicycle, though.
No unicycle, no wombats, no iPhones, but we forgive you anyway. The next person we have has a hoodie and may live in the hood, but she also has a book coming out, and that is badass Cindy Hockman.
Hey, speaking of unlikely books and this reading, Amazon must have very good timing, because while I was at this reading, I got an email notification that my book was right outside my door. And it happens to be A Brief Conversation with Consciousness by Mark Vincent, published by Mr. Jonathan Penton. And now I know what I'm going to be reading after this reading. It was so funny. It's right out there. As you may know, I've been working on a series of alliterative short prose poems using different letters of the alphabet. Last time I think I may have read my G poem or my V poem. And I'm going to dedicate this one to DeWitt because he encouraged me to do an F poem when I mentioned that I was going to do one. So this is called the No F-Bomb poem. Far be it from me to infest my free verse with the F-bomb, for this is a family-friendly forum, and it would cause a frightful kerfuffle, especially from people of faith. I refuse to use any word that is fraught with fraud or in any other way flawed, because if I want to fly far up there with the highfalutin folk of fantabulous fame and fortune, I fathom I could go a lot further with fine formalisms that foment fidelity, friendliness, fantasy, and fun. And now this non-fractious, non-frenzied, non-fallacious, non-foul-mouthed, no F-bomb poem is finally finito. Thank you.
That was fantastic. Remember, this is a family-friendly forum. I love it. Thank you. And we have our final. We save the kitchen. We want the kitchen in our lives, and we want Bob, who's in his kitchen, in our lives. So he is going to provide us with our final open mic moment that we're going to take with us for the rest of the day. You never quite know, will it be performative? Will it be information? Will it be something crazy? Will the dish rag be in the same spot, or will it have moved this week? Bob, over to you.
Bob, you're muted still. You're still muted,
Great.
Bob.
Bob, don't cast your pearls before you're unmuted. We can't hear your pearls of wisdom. Hey, we still can't hear you.
There we go.
Hey, yeah, we
Because
can't.
I unmuted it before I started and it said mute. Yeah, okay, anyway. Sorry about that. Okay, this is a prose poem from my book, The House of Grand Farewells, which are prose poems that were written using an somewhat experimental method. The shapeless. The shapeless represent the precinct of frustration that impresses the flowery boundaries. Here and there, a shaded mustache scampers through the liquid, heralding the nation of protoplasm. Etiquette is the corpse that repeats our best mistakes. It changes a statutory massacre into a wobbling gravy. Eventually, the toluene orchestra floats to the top and thickens our memories.
Thickens our memories. No one does a better final to open mic than Bob Heeman. So thank you, Bob.
Thank you very much.
Back to Mark and Jonathan.
Jonathan, anything to add about the unlikely stories and books, guys?
Oh no, it was just yeah, what a great reading. I was really happy. I'm ecstatic. I feel like we had a great show.
Absolutely. Fantastic reading. Top notch. Thank you again, Meg, Mark, Henry, Kayla, and Jared. And once again, a reminder, next week we have Alfred Korn and Tracy K. Smith. So don't miss that one. It'll be up on Facebook probably before you know it. And I'm going to just read a tiny little poem that I wrote a long time ago. kind of in the vein of eco-poetry that we've addressed several times tonight. It's called Smokestacks. There was never an end to the factories. The more we stared, the more there seemed to appear. It was as if there were factories producing factories, and any imaginable thing could be forged, weft, cleft, stamped, ground, riveted. In the end, something always had to be made, and something else had to be made to make it. Thank you so much tonight, everybody, for a wonderful evening, and hope to see you next week. Lots of love, lots of poetry. Keep healthy. Love you. Good night, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Live long and prosper.
Good night, everybody. Wonderful reading.
Amazing readings.